All right, well, we'll just get started with a little introductions as people are rolling into the meeting. It's really nice to see everyone here. Good afternoon. I am Beth Stone. I'm the site manager for Gutierrez Hubble House. And I'm really excited for us to get into our next exhibit and start with some exhibit programming. We haven't had too much programming during this COVID time, and so we are just really happy to get back into the swing of things and connecting with everyone. This talk is the opening event for our next exhibit, Enduring Querencias, Lost and Reclaimed Expressions of Home. I do want to say we're slated to open up today with the actual exhibit, but due to some of the effects of the lockdown and limitations on the print shop, we are a little bit delayed. So we will send a note to everyone who's registered for this event once the exhibit is up, hopefully next week or early the week after. It'll be within the next week of working days, but we have holidays coming up. But keep an eye out for that. And you can also follow either the Gutierrez Hubble House Alliance, or the Hubble House Alliance has a new name, or Bernalillo County Parks, Rec, and Open Space on Facebook. And so we'll post in both of those places. So there's lots of places for you to find out. The other place is the website for this exhibit, which is bernco.gov/EnduringQuerencias. So I think that information might have been in your follow-up email. But we definitely have it all here, and we'll make sure that you get all that information at the end of this. We do have, like, our grounds are open, and so once the exhibit is out there, or even before, feel free to visit Gutierrez Hubble House grounds, take a walk around the trails, enjoy some of the other outdoor interpretation, and sometime this spring we'll be opening back up to the world on the inside of the museum. But until then, we're just going to continue to bring some exhibits that we can take to the outdoors. So we are excited about the opportunity, and I'm really thrilled to be opening up this exhibit. We've had a great process of working on this with our wonderful guest curator, Esther Garcia, and also with Levi Romero, who's been assisting in this process. But Esther has got a lot of wonderful things to share with you today, and I'm really thrilled for us to get going with this. So I'm going to introduce Dustin Chavez Davis to just remind you a little bit about the open space, and then we'll get rolling with our talk.
Thanks, Elizabeth, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm excited as well to see the presentation and hear a little bit more about the behind the scenes and stories behind this exhibit. So just want to briefly introduce Bernalillo County Open Space. Elizabeth mentioned, that I work with Open Space, and my title is the resource specialist for the county. And right now, the open space, our trails are open despite, the pandemic. We are, encouraging people to stay COVID safe, wear masks and, maintain your distance when you're visiting open spaces. But it is an important part of our culture here in New Mexico. I think our open spaces are really important to us, and the natural beauty is a big part of what you see reflected in some of these images and in the text that that Esther's going to be sharing with us. So the open space program was founded in 1998 when voters of the county approved a mill levy to purchase and maintain open space properties that were protected for natural resources as well as cultural and historic resources. And so the Gutierrez Hubble House was one of the first properties that was acquired by the county, and it's really, I think, a beautiful place that has great connections to our land, to our acequias, to wildlife, and our agricultural traditions. So all of those are things that we try to preserve at Open Space and help to educate folks about those resources. So this presentation, I think, is going to be a great introduction and kind of, like I said, behind the scenes stories behind this exhibit. So super excited to hear more. So I'm now going to pass it on to Professor Levi Romero, and he's going to introduce Esther. So thanks to everyone for joining us.
Good afternoon. We hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for joining us. This afternoon's presentation is an evocative and wonderful exhibit that celebrates and honors Querencia, the place that nurtures us, where we feel safe, where we feel we belong, where we feel at home. This afternoon's presentation is by Esther Marie Garcia, una hija del pueblo del Valle Sur de Albuquerque. Esther is a graduate student in the Chicana and Chicano Studies Department at the University of New Mexico. Enduring Querencias, Lost and Reclaimed Expressions of Home, Photographs, Poems, and Reflections on the South Valley is an excerpt of her thesis project, Voices of the South Valley. Thank you, Elizabeth, Dustin, and the Gutierrez Hubble House History and Cultural Center for inviting Esther to share her work with us and with the community in which she was born and raised.
Well, we're going to get started right away, folks. My name's Esther, and I am honored to be with you today. I want to present the work that was collected by research standards over 2 years, but in reality has been absorbed over a lifetime of living in the South Valley. The sueños that we have exist in all of us. They are in our environment. They are in our memories. We need to remember how important our oral traditions are and how we can really make our ancestors proud. Their voice is heard and memorialized within us. Informal conversations after the presentation about how we can preserve the cultural landscape will take place. I'm honored for your presence. Don't forget the panels will be on display at the Hubble House, and the exact date has not been announced yet. I found out that I live in every member, and their struggle or success lives in me. Our querencia exists in each of us. We are invested and compelled by its victory. Enduring Querencias, Lost and Reclaimed Expressions of Home, shares the photos, memories, and poetry of the South Valley, their residents, and a reflection on loss and resilience. It explores how different South Valley residents answer the question, what happens when a sense of home is lost and when it is reclaimed? Enduring Querencia draws on poetry, storytelling, and visual imagery to capture the South Valley's cultural landscape and the people. I am Esther Garcia. I'm an MA student at the University of New Mexico in the Chicana and Chicano Studies Department. In my academic work, I emphasize the value of preserving oral histories and have utilized writing, photography, and short films to document local culture and tradition. In my quest to find a way to express myself through language, I have unfolded a photopoetics method to exhibit my love of poetry and the South Valley cultural landscapes. I am currently collecting stories and poetry from those who stand in the margins of an underrepresented voice. I feel obligated to tell my personal story and offer someone else a platform to share their own. My poetry comes from my heart, from my life experiences, and the community where I feel nurtured and safe. Writing poetry has reminded me that I'm a strong and empowered woman. Creating Querencias brought me back to my roots. The observations and conversations rekindled my attachment to home and gave me a feeling of safety, nurturing, and belonging. They are not an outsider's perspective. I am an MA student in the Chicana and Chicano Studies Department, born and raised in the South Valley as a daughter of the community. I am invested and compelled to draw from the past to honor a truth, mi querencia. The photographs were taken by me, the guest curator, And they emphasize the people, their struggle, their resilience, and their traditions as a method to communicate either loss of their place or their community through their own words. The exhibit comes from fieldwork I have collected in the South Valley through the last few years of research. This is in part toward my master's requirement. For me, it made sense to address issues within my own community that I felt have not only impacted or influenced me, but my children as well. I have been on a quest to retrieve a lost language, and in doing so, found out that I belong to a community as a tool or a vehicle to help share a meaningful platform for the voices that exist in the area. Many of those oral histories, stories, poetry, and recollections come from my farmers, business owners, unsheltered population, and many reflections from my personal view. The photographic images you're about to see were accumulated through the research in the hopes to have this type of show and allow the community to view or highlight areas in the community that they may not see if they blink along their route. I photographed the cultural landscapes and the voices that accompany them and highlighted or centered the theme of home or querencia around them. Many of the concepts include querencia, descansos, and the people, and how the area communicates or reflects on the past. The medium is text and photo image that have been collected from the South Valley. The photography emphasizes the people, their struggle, their resilience, and their traditions as a method to communicate either loss of their place or their community through their own words. The exhibit is reflective of the South Valley historical buildings and the culture of the people and places. This history is present in the deep culture of New Mexico and the transplants that have been in the area for years. The voices and images remain and honor the people from the community and emphasizes challenges that may be regional. These stories circle the idea of querencia and home and how those are important to the people. We got a little bit of a lag. If you've ever wondered what querencia is, this exhibit will help you understand how Esteban Arellano explained querencia. Querencia is that which gives us a sense of place, that which anchors us to the land, that which makes us a unique people. For it implies a deeply rooted knowledge of place. And for that reason, we respect it as our home. Querencia is a place where one feels safe, a place from which one's strength of character is drawn. So these are some of the boarded up buildings that did not make it into the exhibit. They attribute to that small town feel and is important to that querencia feeling of unity. Everybody will recognize this as Kathy's, but it's actually the old Kathy's. It's a sign of what is out with the old and in with the new. We should try to avoid losing and being consumed by gentrification as much as possible and try to revive these old structures and keep some of the original look. If you look up Querencia in the dictionary, Ernest Hemingway, you will find that Ernest Hemingway defined it as a place the bull naturally wants to go to in the ring, a preferred locality. It is a place that develops in the course of the fight where the bull makes his home. In this place, he feels that he has his back against the wall. He is estimatably more dangerous and almost impossible to kill. Ernest Hemingway wrote about the bullfight in Death in the Afternoon and the confidence, stance, and arrogance and grace of the bullfighter. The bull finds a natural home and relies on the arrogance, technical errors to dominate the fight. When the bull is in his cadencia, he's altogether on the defensive. His horn stroke is riposte rather than an attack, a counter rather than a lead, to beat the attack since it seems the attack is coming. The bullfight Hemingway speaks of is defending our place. The bull is a strong animal. His fight in his corner for the ring is for victory. I cannot take credit for some of these panels, and they have been built and inspired by artists and scholars that arouse the ideas represented here and along with my collection process. People like Dr. Patricia Perea, Professor Levi Romero, the lasting words of teachers like Esteban Arellano and Rudolfo Anaya, and of course, those members of the community that might not get the opportunity to have such a platform like this. This is an example of one of the panels that you will be seeing in this display. This is from Ortiz Farms. The voices exist everywhere if we care to listen. This is important. This image was taken in 2018, but the actual conversation was taken from the owner, Larry Ortiz, a farmer, this year. And he just expressed, as a child, we would plant and pick the chili. We would grow the chili for ristras, but it was for food. We would sit in the evening and make piles and string the chili with twine. They used to be beautiful and long, but they were sold for food. 99% sold now are for decoration. It is so crazy to see how things changed. The adobero, our historic preservation of culture. The pictures and conversation are not staged or provoked. The dialogue was raw about the changing community. The images and the work is real. These community members were actually involved in the production process when I contacted them, and they graciously agreed to be part. The historical preservation of the culture was important to the participants, and they have been lifetime members of the efforts. I made lifetime friends. The people have been inspirational. The people from this community are passionate and proud of their home. Mi querencia. Now I'm going to read you a poem based off this ditch. This ditch was my playground as a child. There was a group of girls, and we would play in this ditch all the time. My youthful summers overflown with strong bonds of kinship and friendship. Those bursts occurred from their home to mine on dirt roads, from elementary school to middle school and north to south. This child experience grew seemingly overnight on the streets of my southwest neighborhood and stretched to the South Valley waterways. Some called them acequias. We called it a ditch, and a ditch life was all we had. A natural playground, yet as far as we knew, it was the center of the universe. My 8-year-old self remembers low-hanging cottonwoods, stand reeds, and bridge perches that linked us to the earth. The ditch bank was half a mile to and from. It balanced everything and everyone. We were sliding down the cement culverts in summer. Cold water, soggy socks, cut-off jeans, and canvas shoes. The smell of honeysuckle blossoms, sour crab apples, and hot tortillas wafted through the air. We were young, awkward, lively, and cute, not fazed by anything, finding safety in each other and our place. We survived hidden makeout sessions with dirty boys on half days while darting dogs attacked from broken chain link fences. Skinny arms swinging from branch to branch and bank to bank. Our green-eyed girl sliced her foot on a jagged beer bottle that lingered on the bottom. Her blood droplets tainted the murky water. My first glimpse of flesh memorialized in my mind. I remember after-school scraps and hoop earrings lying in the dust under a curious mob of 7th graders. Fantasies from ice cream trucks chimed along the trail. Shared blow pops and hot chip wishes from U-Pumpy gas station. Testing the water depths with virgin inhales from behind the mushroom store. Candy Girl lyrics and Guns N' Roses t-shirts. Abandoned car tires, floating beer cans, crawdads, and suckerfish bubbles in the deepest parts. Young girls' voices converted to women's whispers and dreams. Seemingly innocent daughters got baptized on muddy banks, planned by ill practical jokes. The plot left the youngest of us rolling down the bank scared and hurt. Mothers shouted our name to return home as it got passed along through the neighborhood just before dark. Those moments belonged to us. Some of us now grandmas, some of us living in 6-figure digits, one of us buried too soon. Before we knew fear, before dirty water made you sick, before masks and hand sanitizers were necessary, dried chicken pox and training bras, picnics of peanut butter and potted meat, we were untouchable. Northern water came down cold and clear like clockwork for our spring, from meager schools that led one of us to an East Coast college in style. The rest found jobs across the Guadalupe Bridge. We always had that stretch of ditch that guided us back in all seasons. Our way was molded in the strides back home. Some would continue leftward. I went on to the right, alone. It was a measurement of seasons, and it was a time of growth, from there to here, back home. A mi querencia. Gone Now is one of my favorite portraits. This top picture reflects the before and this bottom picture reflects the after. This historic home is found on Isleta. It was built anywhere from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. And I thought this was an adobe home, but when I contacted the owner during his process of tearing it down, he advised me that it wasn't adobe, that it was actually terrones, and that he imagined they probably got cut out of the Rio Grande River that was probably accessible at that point in history. This home is special to me because it just felt like the preservation of this home should have been just a part of historic necessity to keep this home just because of its beauty and its history. So I'm just going to go back on this home here. We do have another poem that will be attached to in the exhibit. You will be seeing the top picture attached to the following poem, and that is Grandma Deserves Her Own Book of This and That and Them. 7-year-old summer days off Broadway. I would see her short stature through the screen door as I arrived, left, or walked to the neighborhood store. She taught and I learned how to sweep, how to make sweet rice without a recipe, how to clean beans, separating pierditas and dirt clods that she alleged could break a tooth. Broken beans discarded. How could they impact the taste? I thought her superstitious faith had bled into her beans, through the santos, rosaries, or the holy water that crowded the space. A whistle from her wrinkled lips to pass the time. Chirping finches and walks to the tienda, hoping she would let me keep the change for bubble gum and Tootsie Rolls. Don't forget to ask your dad for chili, she would remind me hourly, like I was going to forget. The smell of beans, brewing coffee, and cream and sugar-filled cup upon my return. I never had the heart to tell my grandma that I wanted to eat onion rings from Whataburger instead. Warm beans and grandma's silhouette through the warm south-facing window are not forgotten. The collection. Most of the photographs were taken on Isleta Historic Route 66 during the research field work, and many people were very cooperative and willing to share and be part of this collection process. Photographs were taken anywhere from 2018 to 2020 through the pandemic. Many offered advice, suggestions, and the adobero also gave specific tutorial directions on how to create the adobe. As Justin had mentioned earlier, our open space is loved and appreciated by all. Faith was key to many of the participants, and the visuals were collected through the people and the landscape. It's hard to stray away from those factors that motivate us sometimes. Whether it's religion, sometimes it can just be faith in the comfort of that home. We look to Our Lady of Sorrows, the Virgin Mary, and Our Lady of Guadalupe in a quest to discover our place in the world, one's faith, or one's eternal salvation, maybe through the loss of love or unfortunate death. We look to uncover a faith to which we may have abandoned at a time we felt it strong. As we grow, we tend to lose values and love, and we experience much more death. At birth, the only thing in life promised is death. Our faith helps us believe everything is not in vain, a hope that there is something greater, those places where we find rebirth amongst what has been discarded, buried, lost, or forgotten. In the layers of soil, we leave a fingerprint or a footprint. Values and possessions of the modern world prove to be a temporary form of wealth, but spirituality can exist through generations as a hope, an uplifting to the people, to the families. Even when we have turned our backs on our faith, a return becomes inevitable as our needs push us to our convictions. When we become scared, when we realize impending death, in our time of loneliness or absence or need, to reconnect to the dream of healing, we travel and we pilgrimage toward the miracles that lie within the place of solace that brings us hope. Like sheep, as believers in anticipation of a higher power, we find faith. Faith represented itself in many forms in the area. Along your path back home as a reminder that we are close. Descansos is a Spanish word which means a resting place. We take a cross and place it where the accident occurred, where the loved one met the shadow of death. And when we drive by, we will remember the one we loved. That's from Rodolfo Anaya, 1995. The Descansos up and down the South Valley corridor stands as a reminder of an underdeveloped story that left many silent. It left a larger society mourning them. People who could not communicate their needs due to sudden or untimely death or a sign of fate. Although many see Descanso's presence as human destiny, we as a community feel the absence. Those memories live in those people who decide to put those Descansos up. These Descansos stand as an everlasting term of endearment to the lost souls and voices of loved ones, and a critical symbolic key to one's faith. When a person from the community dies tragically, they become immortalized and perpetuate messages and stories for those left behind. Those crosses on the side of the road are markers of the nonverbal identifiers. We grieve for those who died and we remember them. So the poems that I'm reading, they're actually condensed in the show. The panels won't have all of these full poetry. So I'm going to read you the one that is attached to Marina's panel. I am a Lobo at City Center, sitting at Yale and Central, fed by the motion of the street, nurtured by the nipple of knowledge. ABQ, because my whole life I have avoided the 11 letters belonging to Albuquerque. I am a river rat from the forbidden South Valley, hood and thaw along the vein of historic Route 66, where the Pledge of Allegiance mantra came in English and Spanish every morning as it revealed everything Spanglish that has formed me. Bits and pieces, I loved her, I represented her, I became her. A dark raven who's been cradled by the northern edge of a pueblo and the southern borders of Barelas Chicharrones. Hand-applied mud and the smell of wet adobe over chicken wire and my secret desire to taste the dirt on my fingers. Goat heads punctured shoeless toes on Minnie Street and the fields in between. Fat raindrops present themselves on a sunny day just for fun, reminding you who oversees the day. Where blizzard-like snow has crept in late February to ruin a perfectly planned birth. Baptizing a New Mexican daughter with frozen fruit blossoms. My saints accompanied me through my dreary alleys off Lomas. That same faith abandoned me on busy boulevards. Torn on the grid of the streets in every direction with a map in hand, finding my own way. A burque heartbeat kept hope in me despite the dead ends. I have exhaled in comfort, crossing the Guadalupe Bridge, retreating to my rightful side. Free in the darkness of the high-flowing ditch banks, yet trapped in the daylight of City Hall. Knowing that East would always be my mountain compass and the West Mesa would always hold the memory of a friend's body. My home, my heart, in the nooks and crannies. Within 505, I have seen too much death and chased a life not meant for me. I have clapped my hands and smiled sometimes with pride, but mostly by force con poco vergüenza. I have cursed the elm trees and the June breezes and carried the cottonwood seeds that we know them as titones, that swarm my face and tickle a sweaty body. Annoyed and bothered, inhaling Spanish brooms in their peak, in summer, that sweet cathartic aroma coming out of nowhere. Surprising and healing, she offers me vintage stories and hydraulic pitos. Memories have been pleasant and poisoned, sometimes by the same inspiration, and thoughts of Daisy Dukes dipped in the dirty ditch water during the droughts of my youth. I have been impressed and displeased by the changes and growth in her rush maturation. They have been progressive and destructive to an old soul who was not allowed a Zia tattoo on the skin. I am the ruins of my city and was fallen to the dirt, wrecked and faded. My bones will be forced into the ground in Martineztown, broken and forgotten as many have. My home, my city, has been more than hot air balloons and amazing sunsets, and more than red and green. The people of course became an important focal point. Helping within the community and connecting to the people is vital. We need to disconnect from our electronics, as hard as it may be, and actually have these conversations with the live people in front of us. As COVID has reminded us, people don't live forever. And if we are not accumulating their knowledge, we're actually doing a disservice, not just to ourselves, but to our communities, our children, and we need to really absorb that. My love was affirmed by the people. I saw myself in them, regardless of who they were. Poetry is everywhere. This I know is true. These are two of the panels that you will be seeing on display. This image here was taken in 2019, and it was paired up with some wise words from Rudolfo Anaya in 2020. The image you're seeing here of the child building adobes, this was very important as a learning process to pass it on to the next generation. Many homes nowadays are not built out of adobe. They're wooden construction homes, you know, they're close to each other. We want to preserve that regional feel. When I talk about the people, it's hard to not talk about our unsheltered population. Even though the South Valley is seen as a rural community, it still houses a lot of unsheltered population. And they were very willing and very talented in the methods that they brought to this project as well. Um, they they are more than willing to sit down and have conversation with you. And I think it's important to hear them too. This panel that you're seeing on the right, it's titled Look at Me. This was taken in 2020 during the pandemic, but he wrote this in 2019. He's a homeless father, and he felt like he had a moment to share this poetry, and I'll just go ahead and read that to you. He entitled it, Look at Me. They pass by, they see me, they laugh while they're thinking, but really it's sickening because they don't know me. So say that, so say this. Sorry, I don't give two bits. I get the same reaction when they find out I got kids. They're shocked and astonished that someone who's like this, who lives like this, can make it all happen. So please keep on judging. To me, it means nothing. These words are very powerful. This work really teaches a person how to humanize a stranger. The community is my everything. I have been empowered by this. COVID has reminded us how important it is to have home, even if it's not a physical structure over your head. If we believe the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy's message that there is no place like home, we seek that comfort of home. It becomes a tireless journey to find those same genuine feelings that cultivated us in our childhood. When we begin our adult voyages, no one would believe that it would take us back to those roots that we tried to escape in our adolescence. This sense of belonging seemingly still exists. It brought me back to my roots, my place of attachment, that safe feeling. I came equipped with subjugated knowledge, the cultural intelligence consumed in my brain. A heartbeat that brought me back to my querencia, my corner, to understand the true love needed for the community. In conclusion, the power of querencia is important. As a group, we must come together to represent and defend our place, and not just exist in silence, but continue to disrupt narratives that negate our importance. We prove our value daily with every action of the community. Join us in this exhibit, please, at the Gutierrez Hubble House. It was my pleasure.
Thanks, Esther. That was really wonderful. I'd like to invite any questions from anybody. If anybody has questions for Esther or things they'd like to share, you can unmute yourselves, or if you feel more comfortable dropping something in the chat, then we'll relay those questions to Esther. But dive in.
Patricia, I'm sorry, I just want to say something real fast. This is Patricia, and I just want to say that was beautiful. Thank you so much for putting this together. I really can't wait to see it, hopefully in person very soon.
Thank you, Patricia.
I'm going to share a couple things and give you a couple minutes to think if you have any more questions. Just a reminder, we've got programming throughout this whole exhibit, so we'll continue to offer things online if they need to be. We have a youth photo workshop that's currently scheduled to be socially distant outdoor in person. We may have to change that. It's for January 16th, but you can go ahead and go to the bernco.gov /EnduringQuerencias to find the link to sign up for that. So especially if you know youth who are interested in photography, we'd love to talk about street photography and connecting with your community via photography. And then we will show those photographs at the end of the exhibit. Our next virtual event is a poetry reading on the 20th of February. That's a Saturday, again at 1 p.m. And it'll be kind of the same thing, sign up and you'll get a link. And then we'll have a panel discussion entitled Querencia Lost and Reclaimed on Saturday, the 6th of March. And then hopefully by the end of March, maybe we'll be able to have outdoor events. We are planning to have an outdoor walkthrough of the exhibit with Esther again, showing off our youth photography and other events on the 27th of March, but we'll keep everybody updated as to how that is looking. But please do connect with us that way. There is a question here that says where on the property is exhibit stage? So it is going to go up hopefully next week, but we'll send you an update. And it will be along our walking trail. So our parking lot is now open from dawn to dusk as it was before. So you can access it on Isleta, 6029 Isleta Boulevard. You can park and walk around the walking trails. And right as you come into the parking lot, you'll see it to the left as you walk towards the back of the property, to the west along toward the acequia, or towards the courtyard, towards the museum. So we'll be in both of those. So here's, I'm just going to read out for the chat for anybody who doesn't have ready access to the chat. So Flora noted that the poetry is a really compelling aspect of this exhibit, Esther. So that's really exciting to people. And then Mercedes says, this is so beautiful and powerful. Thank you. I was particularly excited about the Adobe piece. My dad grew up building Adobe, and that's a practice I always wish he passed down to us. Maybe I can still learn it from him. This conversation gave me so much to think about. I don't know, Esther, if you want to weigh in at all?
Absolutely. I think it's very powerful when you still have your parents and you're able to go and ask them questions, whether it's recipes, whether it's something that they do, or something that they did, or just a memory. You know, when we're sharing that with our antepasados, it's very important to take that information in, write it down. You know, it may just come back and bring you some piece of joy like I have achieved through this whole process. It's important. And don't wait, do it now.
Do it now while we're at home.
Yeah, do it now. Call your mom, call your dad, and just try to really gather as much information. Call your uncle and your aunt that you haven't talked to forever, because they will remind you of things that maybe you haven't thought of in a long time. It's very important to just try to absorb that knowledge. It's there, and we need to really take advantage of it.
Esther, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm so glad we were able to listen in. I was just curious that, like, through your research that you've been working on in school, what kind of information have you found thus far written about the South Valley? Like, what other in-depth writings have you used to kind of help to feed your research?
You know, from the photopoetic standpoint, I'm not really finding a lot. As far as the untapped, you know, this is like untapped resources, even where my unsheltered population have been exposed. You know, we're not really addressing a lot of issues down in this community that maybe we could. We know, that it is a marginalized community, but we, not a lot of people want to really take it any further than and address some of the bigger issues like education in the area.
We just have another comment to share here. Flora said that the presentation triggered many memories of our own growing up in the South Valley.
For me too. I definitely agree. You know, it reminded me of all my close kinships and friendships, and it really made me think of how important those have been throughout my life.
Do we have someone who's trying to talk right now?
I was sorry.
Okay.
My kids just wanted me to share with you that they really enjoyed this.
Oh,
They were
well, they
fulfilled.
should, because a lot of the conversation I'm having now is about your mother. So it was all our ill-planned pranks and behavior that when we were your age, we were experiencing along that acequia.
Cool. And it's fun going back to New Mexico and they get to see all of those things. And I think it is a place of querencia for sure for them too, even though they don't live there.
Oh, that's great to hear. That makes my heart warm.
I'm gonna read one more comment here that came in from Patricia. Says, I love your poetry, Esther. Your writing captures the spirit of the South Valley. Those images of playing in the acequias are palpable. Yeah.
Thank you, Patricia.
All right, well, we welcome any more questions, but if there aren't any more questions or comments or things folks want to share, we'll wrap it up. I'll just let you know we're going to post this recording on the Gutierrez Hubble House Alliance Facebook page so that people can view it or share it with other people later. We welcome your continued ideas and feedback. We hope to see you at another program, and we definitely hope to see you down at the site soon. We're looking forward to just seeing how people respond. I think you're really going to love these photographs and poetry and other words that are out there shared by Esther. So we're looking forward to seeing you all. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Esther, for all your work on this exhibit, bringing it to us and sharing your ideas and your gifts and your photographs with us in our community, and also for today. And yeah, so nice to see everyone. Last words, Esther?
No, thank you very much. I do appreciate your attendance.
If it's okay, I'm not going to let Esther off the hook quite yet. But I do want to say just a few words and to ask you a question, Esther. First of all, congratulations and thank you so much for this really wonderful and evocative presentation. I know you've been working on this for a number of years now, and you know, just really thinking about when it was just a thought, you know, when it was just an idea, and how hard you've worked all along to just try to put it together into something that we could all visually experience and share with you, and you share with us. So thank you so much. I do want to ask you something, because this kind of work that we do oftentimes is in somebody else's community, and we don't very often have the opportunity to go back to the communities where we're from. So I want to ask you this: how does it feel to come back home as someone who is the same person but yet different than the young girl who was raised in the South Valley along the acequias, the gathering places, and the hallways of Rio Grande High School? How does it feel to come back as who you were and yet being somebody different?
That homecoming for me has been everything. It has really made me use my heart, not just as a word, but as an actual feeling. To come back home and see how everything has changed, it really made me reflect on how I missed how it was. And in my writing, I tried to capture that feeling of what once was. For me, I am always trying to grasp onto something that was from my youth, my childhood, you know, my high school. You know, those are where the moments where I felt good and embraced. You know, I felt like a child. And most of the time now, when I'm doing my work and when I'm contacting people, I feel those childlike feelings, and I remember what they're talking about and how it used to be. And it becomes very personal and emotional for me, because that is truly where my heart is, and I cannot be anywhere else.
Thank you. back to you, Elizabeth. I guess we can begin to wrap it up then.
Right. It does look like we don't have too many other questions, or people have questions, they're keeping them to themselves. So yeah, we'll wrap up. We will post this recording sometime later this weekend. We encourage you to share it. And yeah, we're just really looking forward to seeing people out there and watching you engage with Esther's work and the words and images of the community. So thank you so much. I think that's it. That's a wrap.
Thank you,
Go out and
everybody.
enjoy this beautiful sunny day.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Bye, y'all.